I only ever wanted to play sport, and that's no longer really an option, not as a profession anyway. Praise and give thanks to God for those abilities, those talents that I had the opportunity of displaying for 22 years for my hometown club. Hi, I'm Jamie Jones Buchanan, and I'm a Yorkshireman, a real northerner, and I'm an ex-professional rugby league player, having played for the Leeds Rhinos for the last 22 years.
Jamie Jones once more, through blade green, brilliant try from Jamie Jones Buchanan. Oh, it's tossed it inside, and it is Jamie Jones Buchanan. Burrow short ball to Jamie Jones Buchanan for Leeds. It's one of the most popular beards in rugby league.
I'm from Bramley in Leeds, a little town in West Yorkshire. You know, despite having an unofficial motto, if you're not cheating, you're not trying, we just get on with life there. But for me, it's home, it's my hometown, it's where I grew up. I lived with my mum predominantly. My mum was a single parent. My dad left maybe when I was about 18 months, 2 years old. He was always in my life as a friend, but not as a dad, so to speak. I was really fortunate that my stepdad, Chris, who was in the Navy, came into my life about 2.5 years old, married my mum and became my stepdad, my adopted dad. I had a lot of love in my family, my nana and granddad especially. I'm not that much younger than my mum in many ways, relatively speaking. Now that I'm an adult anyway, she's a great friend of mine. I love my mum to bits. It's an interesting one. I would say that I've always been spiritual as a kid, and by that I mean I always believed in an omnipotent, all-powerful presence, God. I didn't know what that was. My nana used to say prayers. I used to stay at my nana's quite often as a child. My mum was young and she worked, so I spent a lot of time with my nana and granddad, and at night time my nana would say prayers. Jesus rarely got mentioned in that, and I didn't understand who Jesus was. I grew up always wondering, searching. I did believe that there was something. A lot of people say that, use that phrase. Life was pretty good as a kid. I was always really competitive. I knew that if I won, people would like to be on my team. I was always quite big and strong for my age, but I guess the most gratifying part of my childhood was whenever I was winning, and I'd kick, fight and bite to get to that win, because when the win was taken away from me, my identity was taken away from me, and I feared, I suppose, looking back now, that it meant that I would lose my friends. So when I'd signed for Leeds as a 15-year-old, then I had a new challenge, and that was to get into the first team. I worked really hard and became a part of the most successful generation of players in the club's 120 plus year history. We won our first grand final in 2004, which was wonderful because Leeds had never won a championship in my lifetime. We carried on progressing, and by 2007 we won it again, and then we won it in 2008 and we won it again in 2009, you know, 3 in a row, the treble. And in and amongst that, you get the opportunity to play the winners of the NRL competition. Of all the grand finals we won and World Club challenges, we've won 3 of them as well. Despite winning all these grand finals, we never seem to be able to win the Challenge Cup. It's really hard because I always talk about going to Wembley. We've been down there so many times, and it's a great event, it's a big event. But in 2014 we got a chance to play Castleford, played a really boring game plan, and it didn't matter because at the end of the day we got the win. And that got bottlenecked, I think, 2 bookends, 2004, 2014. It was the golden decade. That final win in 2014 I thought was a real refining experience, which we used the year later. So in 2015, 1 year after, we won the treble. We won all of the domestic trophies on offer in 1 year. But for me again, I got injured. I tore my quad in the semi-final, and I laugh about it now because my grandma, my nana, she came running onto the pitch and escorted me off, and I'm in agony and I'm thinking, get off, what are you doing, nana? Get back in stand. Unfortunately, it was the first time in 19 finals that I couldn't play, and the team went and won them all, but it didn't matter because my heart was refined and my mindset as to what was important had changed. So it's great being a part of the team. You've got that fellowship, you've got the camaraderie, you've got that brotherhood, you've got accountability. You've got to be honest, otherwise you get found out. My battles in faith, one of them being, one of the battles I've always had as a professional rugby player is justice. Obviously we have referees who referee the games, and they're only human beings, so sometimes they get things wrong, and when you're looking and trying to model your life on a perfect God who gives perfect justice, sometimes that's the bits that's caught me out. When you're a professional athlete, you've got to live right on the edges, the echelons, you know, the out right at the edge of your comfort zone. When you're out here on a pitch playing a gladiatorial game, when you're getting smashed to bits and big fellas are trying to run over the top of you and your teeth are falling out, you might have broken a bone, you might have torn an hamstring, and you're still expected to get up and carry on playing and do your job. And that's often when we can falter. Ultimately, like a tube of toothpaste, it's a great metaphor that my pastor uses. When we get squeezed, I pray and hope that it's Christ-like that comes out of me. It was a great life lesson for me, and a journey that I'm really privileged to have been on. And it was also the time where I became a Christian and grew in faith as well, and that came about because a player from New Zealand called Alilawatiti came over. This guy was the first guy to take me to church and was the vehicle, the shepherd if you like, to becoming a Christian, which changed my life. And he invited me along to church, which at the time and still is City Evangelical Church. We've just been past Alilawatiti's house, which brings back some nice memories. Ali had an interesting time in Bramley, not least once because he once looked out of his window to see his privets on fire. It must have been like Moses in the burning bush, and instead of it being some divine revelation from God, it was actually some local kids who had set his privets on fire. But my first experiences going to church was a prior expectation, and it was really interesting because I thought I was going to go meet 100 Ned Flanders sat there on a Sunday morning with sandals on and big jumpers. Some of them are like that, to be fair, which isn't a problem, and I appreciated church for what it was, a group of people who needed a physician, and that physician, how do you say it? Physician. Yeah. And that physician was Jesus himself, and that led to me being baptised. And even before then, I'd got married to my childhood sweetheart, if you like, my wife Emma. She's unbelievable. When I get home, it's going to be a wonderful environment to share with my wife and my 4 boys that we both bring up together, who are in the image of their dad in very many different ways. They give us so much joy on a daily basis. There's that old saying, isn't there, that home is where the heart is. It's where my children live, it's where my wife lives, and by God's grace, they're the biggest blessing that I have in my life. And as you can probably see around my house, my wife makes the home very special. She's a housewife. She's very traditional in that sense. And you know, when you came in then, you might have just seen that my double garage has been converted into like a little mini bungalow, because I'm going to bring my in-laws up. I think family is really important. First and foremost, in my home, I've got to be a husband and I've got to be a father. I think the faith at home is really important, and I'm so happy that my own children don't see that as unusual or different in the same way that I did. 3 weeks ago, I played my last game 20 years after making my debut back in 1999, heritage number 1309. It was living a boyhood dream for me, playing for my own town club. Game number 421, over 22 years since signing for Leeds as a fanboy back in 1997. And quite recently the boys all did a video and talked a little bit about me over the years. Some of the older boys who've known me from when I was young talked about how there used to be a darker side to Jonesy, and there was some eminence of a darker past, but certainly my faith in Jesus has changed my life immensely. It's opened my eyes to what's important in life. I think when I was younger it was all about a bit of fame and earning money and medals. When I look back at my career, it's the journey, the relationships that I've built. I hope that by God's grace I can glorify him just one more time. Richard Agar allowed me to be the team captain for the night. I led out the team, and a lot of people within the club went out of the way to make that extra special.
It's rare that any player has a 20-year career. Even rarer than that career is with one club, and even rarer than that club is the team he supported as a boy. With 8 grand final wins, 3 World Club Challenge wins, 3 League Leaders' Shields and a Challenge Cup, ladies and gentlemen, Jamie Jones Buchanan!
Now here's Jamie Jones Buchanan, spills it onto his right for Cuthbertson! It's a fitting way to send off the last of the golden generation of Jamie Jones Buchanan. The crowd are ready for it. Jamie Jones Buchanan, 421st and last appearance with the kick, and it's through the posts! What a moment for Jamie Jones Buchanan!
My sister come on the pitch and sang, and again my boys come out, and the Warrington and Leeds Highlanders did the haka. But I never knew it was going to be quite as different or as welcoming and as warm and special as it was. I was emotional. I'm quite emotional now. You know, I can smell the changing rooms, and I know that it's not going to happen again, which is hard to take. Nobody can ever take away that history from me. So history and heritage is really important at Leeds Rhinos, and obviously this is my last ever shirt that I played in on my 22-year journey. Jamie Jones Buchanan final home game against Warrington Wolves, 13th of September 2019. I suppose fruits of any sportsman or woman's labour is winning, success, silverware, gold medals. I've been fortunate throughout the course of my 20-year career with Leeds Rhinos to win quite a few, been a very successful team. Proverbs 17, where it says the crucible's for silver, the furnace for gold, but the Lord tests the hearts. And I think the big message within the journey of accumulating silverware or gold rings is actually the adversity, some of the hardships that we go through, some of the sacrifices, the hard work, the team camaraderie. Got as many winners' medals as I've got a lot more losers' medals. It's all part of the journey. It's what refines us. The friendships that we make, they're the real gold. And it became apparent that life wasn't about winning and building those treasures on earth, you know, the things that rot away, the money that disappears. Now that all my wrists and joints have got arthritis and I've got aches and pains all over, I'm getting old, entropy sets in, and there's a part of me now that's happy that that's come to an end. I think the biggest challenge as a Christian in a secular world in particular, and in the world of sport, is just being caught up in things that pull you away from time at church. I always trust that God never puts us in any scenario that we can't ever deal with outside of His grace. And when I was coming to the end of my career, it was difficult because then all of a sudden I'm faced with a choice. I'm faced with some decisions based on things that had never really motivated me before. Now let me quantify that. From being 4 years old, all I ever wanted to do was to win. What was I going to do next? Where was I going to go? I don't know, I only ever wanted to play sport, and that's no longer really an option, not as a profession anyway. And it was about what's going to be the next job, what's going to be my role when I get out of bed, you know, for what reason am I going to try and be the best version of myself. So my life changed immensely. My motivations, my destination and my identity, all of a sudden life's not just about winning, it's not just about being a professional sportsman. And all this brings about this stability and consistency in my life that helped me to be a better role model, a better professional athlete, a better rugby player, and ultimately a better human being who wanted to follow and glorify God in a like-minded way. I hope that God continues to challenge me to do His will. Your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. I'm not bothered about choice. I've never really been one for being bored, and whilst ever I can take breath, I'll keep smiling and I'll keep doing that. I praise and give thanks to God for those abilities, those talents that I had the opportunity of displaying for 22 years for my own town club, and I pray that I would be faithful and committed and fulfilling His will in whatever avenue, course, opportunity presents before me.
The guy deserves everything he gets. He is the king of Leeds. He's the man, and it's a sad day when he plays that last game.